Oh, there we go. Hi guys, welcome to my first ever live broadcast on Facebook. This is a new experience for me, so please bear with me if I'm having any kind of difficulties juggling the setup here. I want to welcome you all for joining me here today, and want to thank the Shiflett Brothers, Brendan and Jared, for setting this up. This is a very brand new experience for me. I've been teaching for many years, more than almost 10 years now, but doing Facebook Live and not having an actual live audience is a new experience for me. So we'll see how things will go, and then I welcome any and all questions. We'll try to do this session for the next 2 to 3 hours. 3 hours. All right. Let's. This here is my studio. This is where I work, where I teach my classes. It's basically a warehouse space where I do my own design work, and my teach my classes. All the stuff that's on the shelves are mostly my teaching materials. Stuff that I use to teach my classes. I don't have anything top secret that I can show you. Obviously, they're all tucked away. But this is pretty much where everything happens. Okay. Let me just pan the camera here as slowly as I can, and then I'll give you guys a quick tour as well. All right, now I'm gonna, I guess, see if I can turn this thing around. All right, let's have a look at the shelves, shall we? Here are some of the miniature stuff. As you can see, here's the size of my thumb. These are really tiny little clay sketches. There are no armatures in these. I have 2 pieces of wire going through the legs supporting them. That's pretty much all the armature that's required. By the way, if you guys are having a problem hearing the audio, please let me know, because I'm wearing a earpiece and speaking to the microphone, but I don't know what the audio is like on your end. This here was a demo piece I did for CDA, for my workshop at the Concept Design Academy. There's a shout out for you, Kevin. And here are some of the older pieces I have. The Robotech Macross figure. Hunter's Moon, one of my old resin models that I put out. Here's a fan art, I guess Diablo from Blizzard. There's a Kappa build-up, one of my old resin model release, painted and built by Phil Serra, customized by Phil Serra. Hey Phil. One of my teaching demo piece right here. And this here is also a class demo piece that I did back in October of last year, I believe. Here are some of the Chavant Castelline pieces. None of these have wire armatures in them. They're just, because Castelline is basically a wax product. We have more stuff up there. A lot of these pieces have been sitting on the shelves for a long time, and they're all still in clay form, so they can easily break. A lot of times, things like this, you can just push it and it's gonna fall over. They're very dry and brittle by now. I'll be afraid to even move them. Probably if I try to transport them, they're all gonna fall apart. But for the time being, I just leave them on the shelves for the visitors to see, for my students to see. Here are some alien versus predator diorama that I built. This entire setup can fill up a whole 6 feet table, but right now I just have everything crowded into one shelf area. There's a design maquette for the strain back in the day. Yeah, sure, Brandon. If I send them to you, when you open them up, it's just gonna be bits and pieces. Everything's already fallen apart. Here's some Masters of the Universe fan art that I've done. From time to time, I just do things that it doesn't require too much thinking. I can just go ahead and do them. So that's why I do some of these fan arts. And here's some resin models built and painted by the various master builders and painters. There's Ray Cantu, Phil Serra, Joe Dunaway. Sorry if I left out anybody, but most of the resin kits that I produced, they were pretty much sold out, discontinued. So from time to time I still get emails from people asking if I can make them another copy, but obviously that's just not going to happen because the mold has already fallen apart. And over here we have some of the newer pieces, still work in progress, obviously. We have Skeletor, fan art, obviously, again, on his Panther, and we have He-Man here on Battle Cat, but it's really just a, I sculpted He-Man as like a quick sketch, and then Battle Cat's just a recycled piece of one of the older class demo tigers that I did. Hey guys, sorry, I'm looking at some of the comments on my phone and I can't really react as quickly, but I will read through the comments later on, but let me just turn this camera around so we can get on with this. All right. So, today basically what we're doing is I am going to, answer your questions and do a little bit of demonstration. But again, my apologies if I'm not able to answer your questions quickly enough. But what I'll do is I'll look at the comments here and try to address your questions. Okay. Yeah, I think I might end up missing a lot of the questions because I don't know how to scroll this thing and go back up and look at the questions. I'm seeing some of the people in attendance, but okay, I am seeing some questions. Okay. Apprentices. I don't really take on apprentices now. I mean, I have assistants that will come in and help me with my classes and whenever I need to do some kind of production work. Other than that, and mostly I spend my time just, working on character design and concept design, by myself. Sometimes I have to work at the studios, right next door to the directors. So it's not really, I work very differently than a lot of other artists because I work mostly design stuff. So I don't really take on apprentices, not at this point, anyways. Okay, so I guess today, we should be doing some demonstration since that's what you guys are here for. But obviously, I don't. I guess this is not the ideal environment to showcase too much of my process because the camera setting and whatnot and I guess the Facebook setting itself. But if there's anything in particular you guys would like to see, by all means yell it out, and then if I can spot them, I'm trying to look at my phone so I can I can tell that I am on the camera and I'm looking at my monitor, my laptop, but there's like a little bit of a lag in terms of the speed, so there will be a little bit of delay, but which is good, right? Well, I guess before I get into all of that stuff, let me just quickly do a quick introduction about myself. Obviously, you guys are here. You probably know who I am or have heard of me. But since this is going to be on YouTube, I might as well just do a quick introduction of myself as well, so that you guys know some of the histories. And and because from time to time there are some questions that will pop up on online on social media, people asking me about my backgrounds and whatnot. So let me just give you a quick and brief introduction about myself. I was born in China. I was born in Beijing, China. Lived there for 10 years before my family moved to Hong Kong. And then I lived there for another 10 years. I came to the United States at the age of 21, and I came here, for school. I got my bachelor's degree in business administration, and I majored in marketing. I got my degree from the University of Southern California. Go Trojans, right? After I graduated, I worked in marketing for 2 years, and after that, I got into the business of website construction. I built websites for the next 10 years. As a matter of fact, I built the earlier version of the Shiflett Brothers website, and I built the Shiflett Brothers Sculpting Forum. That's how I, obviously I was a fan of the brothers for a long time, but building their website was actually, I guess, my official introduction to Brendan and Jarrett. So I mean, if you're listening to all this, you're wondering, wait a minute, why does this guy talking about sculpture? I guess the parallel of that story that I just told you was that I've been sculpting since I was maybe age 5 or 6. So ever since I was a little kid, I very much enjoyed sculpture. I very much enjoyed playing with clay, but I've never really taken any official classes or in any official art classes. I'm very much a self-taught artist, since a very early age. But but all those time I've been just doing, building, I guess, building websites as my main job, and then on the side, I was making resin models and sculpting as a hobbyist. So I guess what really changed for me was when my son was born. At that time, I was already 38. So, but what really affected me, from that experience of becoming a new parent was that, looking at him, I thought, this little boy's future is bright. Anything and everything is possible for him. So I figured, wait a minute, what was I doing with my own life? Sure, I was 38, but my life wasn't over yet. I did not enjoy building websites. I mean, it was paying my bills, but it wasn't really anything that that I would get excited about every morning when I wake up. So I thought long and hard. I really wanted to pursue a career in art. So one evening I decided, I was gonna make the jump. I was gonna make a switch. So I had a conversation with my wife. We talked about closing up my web design and programming business and pursue a full-time career as an artist. You can just imagine how difficult that conversation must have been, right? But eventually we came to the agreement that I was gonna do it for a year. Because back in my head I was thinking, because if it didn't work, I'll just go back to building websites, right? I'll give it a shot. Because I mean, if it didn't work, nobody knew who I was anyways, right? So we came to that agreement, and I shut down my business, my company's name at the time was SPIDERZERO Interactive Media. So that is where the name SPIDERZERO came from. Now David Igo, because some people are asking me, where did that name SPIDERZERO came from? Because at the time when I built Brandon and Jared's forum, I had to test the functionality of the forum, so I posted my own stuff on there. I guess subconsciously I was trying to reach out to my people, to the artist crowd. So I posted some work, and the screen name that I used at the time was SPIDERZERO. So when I started pursuing my career as a full-time artist, I thought, okay, how could I make it work? At age 38, it wasn't possible for me to start from scratch and get a job as a studio or some shop or trying to climb the ladder, because I still had to pay the bills. I need to support my family, support a newborn baby. So at that time, I had accumulated probably about 6 or 7 resin models that I put out, under the name SPIDERZERO, but mostly as a hobbyist. You hardly qualify as any kind of portfolio. So I decided I was going to build up my portfolio right in front of people. And I came up with this campaign called 20 Days of Monsters. What I thought was, I'm just going to, sculpt one piece a day for a period of 20 days, so 5 days a week for 4 weeks. And then, put them up on my website. And then maybe get people to start, paying attention and build on my portfolio at the same time. And plus, I figured, again, if I failed, if nobody was paying attention to the campaign, no harm's done, because nobody knew who I was anyways, right? So, I would go into my my studio. It was actually right next door to this current space. It was the unit right next door. It was a smaller space. And so back then, I would go into my studio and, work from 10 in the morning and then until 5 in the afternoon, do my sculptures, and then go home, process photos, upload them onto my website and onto MySpace. Back then, MySpace was still a thing. I didn't even have a Facebook account. So I did that, for a whole month. And, I didn't really know who was watching. I didn't know who was paying attention. At the end of that process, at the end of that campaign, rather, I remember one Sunday morning, I went out to lunch with my wife and my baby boy. Out of nowhere, I got a phone call. I checked on the number. It was a blocked number. I figured probably some sales call I didn't answer. And then later on, there was a voicemail message that came on. And when I checked it when I checked the message afterwards, it was Guillermo del Toro calling to ask if I was available to join him on his next project. I thought probably someone was pranking me, right? I mean, how is that even possible? But it wasn't until the day when my car was parked in front of his house. When I started working on that project, that it dawned on me. It was, it actually, something strange and something wonderful was, actually happened, and that project turned out to be that project was Pacific Rim. That was my first ever professional gig that I've gotten as a concept artist. I didn't even know there was a job title as a concept artist. All I did was just stuff that I was doing in my own time. I would just sculpt and just do my designs directly in clay, and just did my thing. I never realized I could fit into this world of character and concept design, and that was 2011, and I've been working pretty much nonstop ever since, just jumping from project to project. That felt like a floodgate opened. The amount of ideas that was just constantly going through my head was just nonstop and endless. I started teaching probably sometime around late 2010. So it's close to 10 years, and I've worked with countless numbers of tremendous and talented artists from local here in Los Angeles and all over the world. And it has been a truly rewarding experience working with everyone and learning from everyone and sharing my discovery with everyone. So this has been a very humbling and incredible experience that I've been through. So that's in a nutshell my story and how everything came to be. And today, I guess what I'm going to show you is part of that process. Because a lot of times I try to, because because I'm mostly self-taught, and a lot of times I try to find new things, new subject matter that I'm not familiar with, and try to that's of interest to me, so hopefully I can learn from the process and try to discover new things, and share it with my students. And through the process of discussion, that's how I can find even more things and try to better myself and try to improve my workflow and make this whole thing more enjoyable and more rewarding as well. So today I'm going to show you some of that. All right, I guess let me very quickly take a look at some of the comments here. There it is. Okay. Hey guys, yeah, I'm just looking at the comments. I don't know, I'm not able to scroll down the comments, so I don't know if that's anything that's gonna matter. but I guess I can probably answer some of them later on when I see it. But I have a little figurine here. I guess I can talk about some of the technical questions that people usually ask me. One of the questions that I get asked the most is actually what kind of clay do I use. To be honest, I use a lot of different brands. I'm not married to any particular brand. Each types of clay has their own unique purposes, advantages and disadvantages. So my thing has always been just try to get to know some of the products so that I can get a feel for it, and then try to utilize the material to the best of my abilities to create what it is that I'm trying to create. And the clay itself is not gonna sculpt itself. I have to know how to use it. The difference between sculpting traditionally and sculpting digitally is that when we're sculpting in clay, anytime we're pushing into the clay is pushing back. There is resistance. So you have to know, you have to understand the property of the material. You have to know the kind of pressure that you're creating, that you're applying to get the right result. So to that end, I use pretty much most of the popular brands out there. This one was sculpted in Shiflett NSP. Is an oil-based clay, which is quite similar to monster clay. I have very limited experience with monster clay, but from what I've experienced is a very good product. I mean, in my mind, oil-based clay is unique properties where you can, melt it down, and when the clay is really, really soft, you can build a form very quickly. You can work with it almost like a brush. But once it gets hardened, you can start carving. So you get a different types of result from that material. So I use Shiflett. I use some monster clay from time to time, but not as often. But I also use Super Sculpey, which is a polymer clay. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with that. Different types of Sculpey, and I use wet clay from time to time, water-based clay. Also, there's epoxy clay, and that is your Magic Sculpt, your Aves, epoxy putty types of material. Sometimes, if you take my sculpture, if you're to cut it open, on the outside I will have Magic Sculpt. On the inside, I may have a layer of Super Sculpey. At the core, I may have some Shiflett. So it's very difficult for me to tell you what kind of clay, do you use, without me getting into this really elaborate explanation. Why am I doing things this way? Or it's really, at the end of the day, it's really about what it is that I'm trying to create and what kind of results that I can get out of that process. Okay, I got this. All right, let me start with what I have here is just a tiny little figurine. It's already pre-built underneath this. It's a armature, aluminum wire armature that looks just like this. Pretty much all of my sculptures has a armature system that looks like this. So I do not build my sculptures the same way, I guess unlike a lot of other sculptors, the way I was sculpt is that I use very flexible and flimsy, weak armature wire, especially when I teach. But it's when I teach it, people will understand why do I work this way, because it is important for to understand balance and gravity, we need to be able to have that type of flexibility. So oh man, there's a lot of questions. If any one of you guys can send me a quick note on how to look at some of the comments. I'm just only seeing the most recent ones. I guess Jared, if you can send me a message to tell me how to do that, that might help. Because I'm only able to see the most recent, like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not able to scroll back up and look at the earlier comments. So I guess there may be a little bit of a lag in terms of my answers to the questions. I have James asking me about composition tips. Chiffon sticky, yes. Chiffon, it is sticky. So a lot of times you will have to, get some paper towels handy, and you want to wipe your fingers clean. But chiffon is only sticky in the beginning when it's soft. Once it's hardened, you don't have to worry too much about that. There's actually, as the temperature cools down, it becomes more and more dense. It's almost like the equivalent of, for those of you that are familiar with digital sculpting. What happens with digital sculpting is that when initially you want to build with a low polygon model, so you can build up the forms quickly. When the clay is soft, you will be able to move it very quickly, and that will be the equivalent of a lower resolution model. When you do details, you want the clay to be dense and rigid, and that is okay. I guess I can, let me just go to the forum real quick, and seeing yeah, thanks, Jared. I just got your message. I'm trying to, this is weird. Okay, I got a comment here saying that, constantly, a lot of times the subject matter that I'm into, I guess from anime and things like that, or with some, Asian cultural influence. Obviously, things that I was influenced when I was little is from my upbringing, from my environment. I spent my childhood, the first 10 years in China, in mainland China, and then I spent the next 10 years in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, for those of you that don't know, is very much a mixture of both East and West in terms of cultural influences. And then I spent most of my adult years in America. So in terms of cultural influences, I think I'm really a mixed bag. Subject matter doesn't really matter to me. What it is, what I can pretty much, when I'm working on projects, I'm usually just being handed a script, or a partial description of a character. Then I'll have to, run with it and then try to create that. So, we shouldn't really limit ourselves to just certain subject matters or themes. Yeah, I pretty much, 99.99% of the stuff that you see that I've done were all done directly in clay. I rarely do any kind of pencil drawings before I sculpt. I guess, from my years of teaching, what I've noticed is that, I guess in my mind, traditionally sculpture has always been done as a building tool, used as a building tool. What I mean by that is that, you always have to have a preconceived design on paper or some kind of a drawing, some kind of a design, and then you hire a sculptor to build it. Okay, that is very much a building process. So you have to take the measurements, you have to get your references, and you have to, build the creation based on the design. But the way I would, I've been doing this thing since I was a kid. I would just, pick up some clay and just start doodling. So in that sense, what I am doing is really just sketching the design directly in clay, because the reason for that is, this is my opinion anyways, like, when you do a drawing, it only has to work from one viewing angle. If I am looking at the screen right now, if I were to show you this little guy, this was a old sketch that I did just on one block of clay. One of you guys mentioned composition. So if this is a drawing, right, even when you're looking at the computer screen or on your phone, you're still just seeing a two-dimensional image. So this composition will only have to work from this one particular angle. But for a sculpture, if you're right here in my studio, if you're looking at the sculpture, if you're to turn it, right away the composition will, you're looking at a different angle. What if I were to tilt the sculpture, right? You're looking at yet another composition. So what that means is that for a composition to work three-dimensionally, you cannot, design the thing just purely on paper or in 2D, because it might look nice from that one angle, and as soon as I turn it, you would have lost it, something else, because you have to adapt. You will have to adapt your work to the viewing angle. So the way I will create these designs or work on my pieces, I will just work directly in clay and create a character or create a composition or the design that way. All right. So I guess one way I can continue with this, we'll just start playing with the character and see what that will take us. Okay, I am trying to work toward the camera angle, so this thing might come across looking a little bit weird, but please bear with me. Hey Gary, love you too, brother. Which sculptors influenced me? Well, Merlin asked me that question, which sculptors influenced me? Well, to be honest, I have a lot of sculptors that I adore, that I love, that I admire. Obviously, Brendan or Jerry Shiflett. But they're in terms of influence, not anymore, because not that Brendan and Jared no longer influence me. They always hold a very special place in my heart. But seriously though, here's my opinion on the subject of inspiration or influence. If we can just master the fundamentals as an artist, meaning you can master the anatomy, you can master the movement, you can master composition, then what happens next is really just how you utilize your knowledge, utilize your skill set, and try to sing your own tunes speak your own mind and make your own statement. And to me, that is the most interesting part, because way back in the day, when I was still working as a hobbyist, not working, but when I was still a hobbyist, when it comes to sculpture and art, I was always on the lookout for, quote unquote, ideas and inspirations. I was always buying art books, buying DVDs, and try to get a glimpse of how, other famous sculptors were working. But looking back, those were the days where I had the least amount of ideas on my own. But in retrospect, what happened was that my foundation was still not solid enough that I wasn't able to freely express my feelings and thoughts. So, but once I let go of all of that, once I just get straighten my focus and get my path back onto, the pursuit of the some of the answers myself. Like how do I work with a multi-character composition? How do I get some energy channeled across that is effective and efficient? Once I started doing that, what I realized was, the ideas were actually endless. It's really, a lot of times it is really, if our reservoir of knowledge or understanding is not adequate enough, then we will always have a problem getting that message across, okay? You really have to look at what is the bottleneck in your current workflow. Once you're able to break through that, then everything will just open up, and you will find that you'll be able to express your thoughts and express your feelings and your ideas freely enough that you're never going to need any other artists to inspire you. Nowadays I actually get most of my I do most of my research on illustrators. From time to time I'll invite artists that I like and whose style that I find interesting to come by, and we'll do like an art jam to just in the process I want to to try to analyze how this person is expressing his or her ideas, and then see if I can get onto that frequency of vibration, so I can utilize that knowledge and utilize that skill onto my own craft, and it isn't something that that is limited to sculptors. We're all just artists. Just because someone's holding a pen and I'm holding a block of clay, that doesn't mean that I cannot use their workflow, their 2D workflow, and apply it to my 3D material. All right. So yeah, I mean lately I've been because the comment from Joe Parker is that lately I've been experimenting with claymation. That came up because it's a natural extension. Like, if I were to just animate my character, right? For example, if I were to just bend my character like this, okay? And I were to take pictures of this, then I will have an animation worked out in a matter of minutes, okay? Like if I were to just do this. the idea is to be really able to just move your character. Okay, I hate the term posing, because a lot of times when I teach my students, people will ask me, how do you come up with a certain pose? What I found from my years of teaching is that it's not really, you shouldn't be learning just posing. What you should be learning is actually movements, because when you think about posing in the traditional sense, is really, just a lot of artists will have to have references, like photos of a static moment. You have one pose, and then there's another pose. There's one static moment, and another static moment, and another static moment. So if you have to create a series of frames, you will have to analyze those frames individually. But what I would recommend is actually understand the entire human body, the way it moves. Because once you understand how the human body can move, you understand everything. It's not just one frame. You'll understand the transition, getting from frame A to frame B to frame C. So you understand this entire system. Then that way, you're no longer bound by the collection of references you have of the first frame, and then you tilt another angle, let me get another, so on and so forth. No, you don't need that. You just have to, because what you and I, all of you guys watching or listening in, what you already possess is the ability to move freely, because you've already, you already understand how to work with gravity. You know how, your body can counterbalance. Like, when was the last time that you have to look up references and just to sit properly and not be tired? You don't need that, because you understand movement, not intellectually, but like from a emotional standpoint or a physical standpoint. You already have that ability. So what you need to do is actually what I would encourage or teach people to do is to tap into that, okay, what you already possess, and make the intellectual jump and carry that knowledge over, so you can create any amount of static frames. That is pretty much a screen cap from a series of individual frames, right? You need to understand how this body can work. Right, you need to understand how this system can work, so you can really utilize the system to do anything that you want, not just arbitrarily, bending and doing anything that doesn't make any physical sense. But you have to understand the skeletal structure underneath, the joint system on the human body, and then the muscles, the corresponding muscles that's responsible for all those movements. Then you'll be able to create, things like this. I guess at the very least, from a very mobile standpoint, in terms of mobility, things looks like they're moving. There is a frozen frame of action. It's not just because how people would, here's one action, but if I really just lean into it, you feel that pop, then you feel the force, right? So it's that one little extra inch of energy, or that one extra ounce of energy, is what can transform something from something that is static to something that is more energetic. And the only way to do that is by understanding, how the human body can work. And once you understand the human body, you will be able to utilize that knowledge and apply that onto other types of creatures, animals, so on and so forth. Then, you have no problem whatsoever just try to recreate the movement of a horse, of a cat, of a dog, or anything like that, because your approach, you're starting from a perspective of understanding and logic, right? It's no longer just by looking at a static frame, and it's a 2D image. I mean, there's tons of information that is lacking just from a photographic reference. Vincent, hey, how do you not fuck up the details when you move your characters around? Oh, well, I do. I mean, look at this thing. There's no detail here whatsoever, right? But the trick is, though, if I can just sell the energy right, it doesn't matter if is missing or whatnot. Okay, when you think about it, right? If if I put my hand really close to the screen, and you can see all the wrinkles and whatnot, but if I pull it back, you're not going to be able to see all that. You still recognize this as a hand, right? With my character, even with the details that are missing, you see how broken up this guy is, like that, right? But if I pull this back, why is it that, okay, let me just very quickly do something that's, all right, this feels a little bit weird because I'm used to hearing noise in the studio with my students just chatting and talking and here, but you guys are all still there, so let me just create this real quick. All right, if I were to do this, like almost like a just like a character's leaping like that, right? I mean, from a distance, you don't get to see any of the details. So why is it working? I hope it's working, and I know it's working. The reason why it is working because the energy and the emotional is the emotion is in the right place, right? So even if you're looking at the screen, if you're looking at, or if you look around you, if you're looking at a real person, if you're by squinting your eyes, you don't get any of the details. What you're getting is the silhouette, a shadow almost of that person's movement or body language. But if you're able to get that right, then it doesn't matter if I'm missing any of the details, because I'm still I'm still describing the correct emotional state of that particular scene, right? When you have that on your side, then you have a much better chance of having a much more impactful result on the audience, leaving a much more impactful impression on the audience. And at the end of the day, that's what concept art is. I have to go back to I guess my line of work as a concept artist. A lot of you guys will probably agree, like yeah, Vincent, Air Jordan, right? I just need to give him a ball or something. Right? I don't know what that is, but something is happening. Oh, maybe here, he's trying to catch that head, right? Say, hey, I want to go catch that, So, and that's what composition is, by the way. Like, we have to make them work together. So these guys are trying to catch it. This guy's like, I'm gonna get it first, because I'm Mike. Anyways, so concept art is that, we're trying to describe a scene with a conceptual way of framing that moment there's no time for us to put in a whole lot of details. We have to be able to capture that energy, because we're literally talking about like a window of less than an hour sometimes. Even if you have a whole day, still you need to be able to present the scene so that it's impactful, and then the director or the art director or your clients will respond, or you will have the right impact. So in order for that to happen, you have to create the right sense of energy, the presence. And when you have that, even when you don't have the details, you will have the right impact. It's almost like you're trying to make something unfinished appearing finished, right? And that's the whole point. I can either show you all the details, or I can just show you very little detail, but all of the energies that's behind it and more, right? When I have that on my side, then I'm tapping into your emotional mind. It's no longer just a focus on the details. Because one of the analogy that I always use in my class and with my students is that, you can think about a poem. Think about poetry, a poem versus a instruction manual. In a poem, there's only a few words, right? But those few words, if you can feel something, that can linger in your mind for a lifetime, right? I'm pretty sure some of you guys will be able to recall some words in a song or a poem that you've heard when you were a little kid. It still linger in your mind every time you think about that poem or those lyrics. There's this rush of emotions coursing through you. You relive that moment again, right? But it's only a few words, versus when you look at an instruction manual. It's literally a book. It has all the information you ever need about this product. It has tons of words. But tell me, when was the last time that you can recall, oh my God, I cannot believe that manual that I read when I was in high school of that Samsung product. That manual changed my life. You're never gonna have that, right? But there's so many words, but what's missing? There's so little emotion. There are words, but it does not have the emotional connection to your mind. And that is what is in my opinion anyways, that is what is the defining quality of great art. It has to tickle or tap into the emotional mind of the audience. When you have that, then you feel the energy. When you look at a facade painting, you feel the characters struggling. You feel them, fighting or clawing for existence and for survival. And that's what we want. So sometimes, even when I don't have the details, I can still capture that. But can you imagine when I have the detail? And that is another question that we'll need to answer, another discussion that we'll need to have. But without turning this session into too much of a philosophical discussion, let's just continue with this and see what we can turn this into. Okay. Okay. Art was saying that when you first started sculpting, what area you felt needed to get better or stronger at? I don't quite understand that question. Which area? I guess when I teach, I would get people to just try to get better at anatomy, but not anatomy in the traditional sense as, okay, let's just have you learn that thing, learn all the muscles. I am I believe that, in terms of learning anatomy, we need to learn movement. We need to understand movement. So someone like this, it has to work from all angles. Okay. I mean, I don't have a model here, or I don't have anybody referencing anything, but it has to work, and it only comes from. Do I use calipers? No. If only when I'm doing something for accuracy or symmetry, then I'll use calipers. I'm just designing. I don't need to do that. All right. So let me just try to. And this is a very much a first for me. And again, I want to thank Jared and Brandon for setting this up. Try to sculpt in absolute silence. And yes, there is an audience watching and tuning in, and not hearing any audio feedback, and working towards my cell phone screen is really a first for me. So it's definitely a very interesting experience. All right, so hopefully I can see. Yeah, I'm trying to look past the comments. Yeah, this is a very strange experience, guys, because I used to work in tech, but I've been out of it for so long. Really having a difficult time adjusting to the new technological changes, and try to work with the different things and try to come up with solutions, or even just doing this demo is in this type of setting is definitely a new experience for me. All right. All right, why don't we do this? I tend to get the most energy out of. Why don't you guys mention a couple of creatures? Just type in the names and whatnot on the screen, and I'll see if I can work that in with all of the other questions that I was able to catch earlier. So, I mean, the only thing I'm remembering is composition, and someone asked me about finishing touch. Oh man, Cthulhu, Serum, Phantom Core. Oh man. All right, you guys are making it too easy though. All right, I'll try to. I'm not gonna be able to. Deer. Oh, all right. I'm not gonna be able to work all of that into the sculpture, but thanks for the suggestion. So. Let's try to turn this into something, okay? Guy for Year of the Pig. Oh my God. Yeah, one of the things that I love doing in my classes is that during one of the last class, what I'll do is I'll have, at least the one that I'm doing in person anyways, I'll have my students just yell out certain characters or creatures, and I'll try to work everything into the same demonstration on the spot. It is challenging, but it's also the most fun. Challenging, obviously, you can never anticipate what's going to happen, what people will ask, will request. But, oh man, okay. All right, Cayman Rider, Boar, Cthulhu mashup, jellyfish. Okay, okay. I guess the whatever I was able to capture first. Those are the people that won. Okay, I'll try to do that, and then. Okay, why do all sculptors seem to be into naked characters? It's not the nakedness itself, but when you think about even the human body, the clothing that you're wearing, what are you, wearing those things over? You're still wearing that on top of your naked body. Your body will have to be in certain types of structure in order for the clothing to make sense. So for me to do any kind of a basic or foundational buildup of a character, the human body itself will be the very first starting point of this conversation. So it's not really the nakedness or the nudity itself. That is not because of that. But it's the first layer of movements. Because once I have that, then I can put on the clothing, put on the shirt, on the body. I can know how these wrinkles will form because it is formed over the anatomical structure that's underneath. Okay, so they're related. They're not, because the first layer would affect the second layer. Like whatever moves down here will shift everything up here. Yeah, how can you talk and sculpt at the same time? Yeah, I mean, this is because I've been teaching for a long time. This is actually not that challenging. Yeah, I think that one time we did a live event. I think there was probably 400 people in attendance. It's in a theater type of setting. I don't remember the number, but but things like that is really, yeah, I've been, I guess I've been doing this for a while, just teaching and creating. Oh, any tips for hard surface sculpting? Okay, hard surface sculpting, unfortunately, you will have to come to my classes. Hard surface sculpting is actually the easiest type of sculpting there could be, because I figured out the solution for that while I was working on a commercial project, and it was daunting at first, challenging, but once I was able to figure it out, that's actually probably the easiest. I might do a tutorial on that at some point. Yeah, if any of you guys are interested in joining me in one of my classes, I do have one coming up. I have a in-person class that's coming up in probably 3 weeks, and an online class that's coming up in about 2.5 weeks. The information right now is up on my website. If you go to bigbluetree.com, you'll be able to find the information. You can enroll there. If you're in Los Angeles, come here and join me here in Alhambra. It's the city right next to Pasadena. If you're outside of Los Angeles, you can join us online. You know, I've taught some of the, you know, I've worked with some of the best digital and traditional sculptors in the world. You know, sharing my experience, sharing my knowledge, absorbing theirs through my classes. You know, people of all ages. The only prerequisite is that you should have some basic knowledge on anatomy. That's pretty much it. Whether or not you've sculpted before, it doesn't matter. All right, I mean, right now there's a second person asking me about hard surface sculpting. Let me ask you this. You need to ask yourself, what is, you know, I'm not gonna give you the answer, like a magician is not gonna reveal his tricks, but I will reveal it in my classes. But think about it this way. Let me just, you know, share with you my experience in terms of me figuring out the solution. It's actually quite simple. What will be the problem? What is the most challenging aspect of hard surface sculpting, right? Number one. Number two, if you take away that part, you know, the most difficult part, what's underneath or what's driving this discussion, is that any different from what I'm doing here? Okay, you need to think in those terms. A lot of times, what I've noticed in when people do stuff is that they have a tendency, you know, where it's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's just that we're taught this way. We have a tendency of grouping too many things together. But when I teach, or in my workflow, I have a tendency of breaking things apart into layers. Maybe that came from my background of, you know, I was, in my previous life, I was a programmer. So I do have this side of me that's very analytical. So I do have a tendency of breaking things into pieces, okay? Can you imagine, you know, I'm pretty sure in your own personal life, you have your different folders of to-do lists. You know, you have your workout, you have your bills, you have your entertainment, you have your whatever. Imagine if you group everything together, how confusing and overwhelming that would be, right? But in terms of learning, problem solving, sometimes if you're able to break things apart and put them into separate folders, you have a much better chance of finding the answer quickly and much more efficiently as well. So, you know, in terms of hard surface sculpting, I will encourage you to look at that task again and see if you can break it down, okay? If you just go towards the end result and say, it's really the outermost layer that presents the most problem. So think about that one. And then, you know, maybe we'll have another discussion later. Yeah, there's always people, you know, bootlegging my work. Anytime if I were to put out a resin model, probably within like a week, there will be knockoffs, you know, coming out on the market someplace, you know, which is unfortunate, but that is really discouraging to artists. You know, like people work really hard to try to create some product or share with people the results of their hard work, and other people will just come along and try to, you know, bootleg your hard work. That happens a lot. But unfortunately, that's just how things go sometimes. Any tips on dynamic posing in a creature? Well, you have to understand movement. It's like, I mean, I know this video is going to be on YouTube, so you guys will be able to watch this and later on. think about this. Like when you think about movement, right? Instead of thinking that one's box of dynamic movement, just take that away. Just understand movement, because once you understand movement, I mean, it's just movement. is movement pushed to the brink, But if you don't understand movement, how can you overstep or just stand on the edge and try to, push that over a little bit more? So what you really need to understand is movement. Movement as in just get your character to walk properly, okay? Even that is complicated. It's not so complicated you cannot understand, but it's complicated if you don't approach it from the right angle, right? You have to understand how the body's weight is shifting, how it is constantly repositioning itself to regain balance. Okay, once you know that, it's almost like, if you knew how to ride a bike, when you're a little kid, you'll always know how to ride a bike, even when you're an adult. Even when you have not gotten on a bike in years, you will be able to do it. Is understanding movement, understanding balance. That's what you need to look into. Hey, JJ. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you in class. Is it possible to design creativity / sense of, oops, oh man, it's bouncing so much. Okay. And now it's gone. It's basically, is it? I guess one of you guys are asking, is it possible to develop creativity, or do you have to be born with it? Okay, I think in general, we're all born reasonably creative. Okay, some people have a better sense of composition, but one of the biggest problems that we all face is that we're all taught to contain that creativity. Okay, when we're little, I'm pretty sure, we've all had the experience, we have witnessed other little kids just taking a crayon, just going crazy, drawing whatever, putting triangles on top of water bottles and just, creating monsters with a hammer as a head or whatever. When we're little kids, we're very daring, right? Because that's how we're born. We're very free-spirited. We just do whatever. But as we get old, we're taught to keep that contained, to keep that under control. No, you don't want to draw that on paper. You don't want to put that in front of people because that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make people comfortable. You want to take a step back. So we're actually taught or encouraged to be more contained, to be more restrained. So to become creative again, like even when you go to school, when you're taught, all your training is on the technical skills, how to draw the shadows better, how to render something photorealistic. But how do I think outside of the box, right? While you're working entirely inside the box, or when someone's trying to put you inside this box. So your task, assuming that some of you guys have gone through a number of years of technical training, so you know how to draw a human figure, okay? So your next step is actually try to get out of that I don't know how to describe this out of the box thinking, but try to let go of your fears. Okay, like for example, going back to the anatomy, right? If I'm able to control this, if I'm able to work with forms freely, then I should be able to move this guy any way I want, right? Then that way I can really let my character to speak in a way or to put forth a message that is uniquely mine. Okay, so can creativity be taught? I would rather say how to set free your creativity. What I've witnessed is that, sure, I mean, there's some people are more creative than others, but what I've witnessed, again, as a teacher, I've taught so long and worked with so many different people and everyone, a lot of professional artists. What I've witnessed is that those people's creativity, they don't have a problem with it, but their creativity is bound. They're tied down in a chain, right? You want to break that so you can use your full potential. And hopefully in the process, you can expand your potential. So I guess the short answer will be yes, but it's not getting someone to teach you to be creative. It's someone to almost like to set you free, right? To go back to that childhood version of you, okay? So you can let loose of all these technical preparation you've been training years for, right? But the creativity is actually being buried underneath. You want to set this aside, let this come above, sit on top of your technical trainings, and you have a much better chance of creating something that is memorable and impactful. Another record? Awesome. I'm not trying to break a record here though. But all right, I think I better get something down here, try to sculpt something so that we can have something at the end. Dynamic movement is not exaggeration. You can't call it exaggeration. To know exaggeration, you have to really know the range of possible motion that a human body can put forth, right? If you don't know what it's capable of, how can you go beyond it, right? So you have to be able to know the different frames, how to create those frames, and then just stop at the one that people can anticipate the next frame, right? Why is something that can appear universally dynamic to a lot of people? Because we have observed other people all our lives. We know how people move. We know how animals move. So, maybe not intellectually, but emotionally, from an emotional standpoint, we all have that information in our head. So when you observe something that is exhibiting similar behavior, then you know that is dynamic, right? So to create it perfectly or convincingly in art, you will have to understand movement as a whole. It's not movement as a separate bits and pieces. Movement is one continuous stream. It's not just, one drop of water here, one drop of water there. When you have access to the whole stream, you can pick out any point you want, right? Then everything will work. So I guess the good news is once you're able to do one, you'll be able to do all. From my observation, the only problem with the prevailing way of teaching anatomy or sharing that knowledge has been from the wrong angle, from the wrong starting point, and that is a very static approach to something that is dynamic. Hey, Caesar. Yes, it is possible to rewatch this again. I believe Jared's going to post this on YouTube, right? Or it's going to be in the forum at some point, so I can watch myself embarrassing myself. Okay, I'm not using any kind of armature for the creature here. This isn't how it normally will work, but you know, for the sake of a discussion, or just to have a design in place, I'm gonna do it this way, and then we'll come up with a better solution afterwards. All right, let me just drill some holes on a board, and I'll come right back, okay? Okay, I am using the, what I have here is Chavant NSP medium, but you know, it doesn't really matter what kind of grade it is. I mean, if you're if you know what you're doing, you know, you should be able to utilize the particular material of your choice. The reason why you know, a lot of times people ask me what kind of clay do you use, I tend not to answer. Not number one is annoying, because you know, I probably get asked that, like, you know, hundreds of times already or more. And number two, I really don't want people to think that, you know, just by using a different type of clay, you get all the answer. That's simply not the case. You have to, even if I point out the brand, you know, you have to know how to use it. How to utilize that material so that it is, you know, beneficial to you. Because otherwise, you know, if you don't know how to use oil-based clay, for example, you know, people might find it to be really sticky and you know, makes a mess when you accidentally drop that on the carpet or something. So, I mean, the answer is actually a lot more complex than that. By the way, there's a contest that Shiflett Brothers has organized. It's the Monster Rider Challenge, I believe, right? The third one. You know, for those of you that are watching on YouTube or elsewhere, that is happening. So, looking at my character writing something, just want to put that out there as well. And you know, I'm encouraged. It's a great, awesome contest. It's a great chance of, you know, letting more people to be aware of your work. So and it's a good chance of networking and sharing your experience and your skills with other people. So I encourage all you guys to look into it and take part. Hey, Arnold Goman, the owner and producer of Monster Clay. I have a lot of my students use Monster Clay. I mean, I've heard a lot of great things about the product. For you guys, I mean, for me, I don't use it as often only because I don't have easy access to it. But in terms of material, I highly encourage you guys to experiment and try out different products. Hey Ray, happy Chinese New Year. Okay. For smoothing, yes. I would use isopropyl alcohol, and mostly I'll try to clean it with a tool first, and then at the end I'll brush it with alcohol. You can get that from most drugstores. Hey Tony, sculpting a long life, awesome. For the alcohol, I would recommend 99%, but although that is a little bit rare, if you cannot find, sometimes, some of my students are able to find it in pharmacy and drugstores, but 99% is kind of rare. But if you cannot get that, you can get that online. But in the stores, you should be able to find 91% or 72%, but between those two, I would say get the 91%. But if you can get the 99%, it'd be even better. Hey Sean, hope to see you at Monster Palooza, okay? Yeah, sorry if I miss any of your comments because I can't really. Yeah, I should have gotten my assistant to come in here. I didn't anticipate this. It was my fault. I should have tested out the setting. My apologies if I miss any of your questions or comments. I'll try to go back and reread the comments and I'll answer them individually on the forum. But for now, whatever I can catch, I'll go ahead and I don't know what that is. Yeah, someone was talking about the creature. I have no idea what that is. I mean, for me, making those type of choices or decisions is really about going back to that earlier, one of the comments about composition. You know, the lines will have to work. You know, it has to flow, because if the line isn't working, like from what you're setting, you know, this is very different. You know, when I'm working on commercial projects, when I'm teaching, it's a very different process. But here, because you know, I'm looking at the screen, I'm trying to sculpt to the screen. So it's almost like I'm trying to draw from your perspective, because I want to tie into that earlier question about someone was asking about composition, right? So even just with the way that these lines were wrapping around each other without any kind of details, they will have to work. If that's not, you know, if the line isn't working, then it's simply not worth me putting in the details. Because again, you know, whatever it is that you're creating, it has to work, number one, from a far distance. So even the silhouette, the shadows is appealing and exciting and engaging enough. Then you come closer, you show them more. You show them more information, right? And then if that is also, you know, appealing enough, so they will want to come even closer, that is when you show them the last layer of details. Do not work from the other way around. Like, a lot of people will try to start, let's focus on the details. Let's get all the pores, get the skin textures in. No, because that's the last layer of the information that you need to address. You have to have a strong design, and you pull the camera, you know, closer and closer to the thing. Because otherwise, you know, as soon as we take, you know, zoom out, you'll lose all your advantage. For great designs to work, they will have to work just from the purely the design level. When it's really, really rough, like all the lines will have to work together. Do I have a favorite creature to sculpt? Not really, because you know, I'm an artist. Like, I do art. Like, if you ask a musician, like, a lot of times, if you ask a musician if there's a particular type of music they like to play, sure, maybe there'd be a different theme, but musicians just play music, you know. But if it's a, you know, rock musician, or, you know, they're always playing certain types of rock music, it's not because, sure, they might enjoy it, but it's not, I mean, they're doing it mostly for their brand. That's what they're known for. But for me, I enjoy all subject matter. You know, I can do monsters, you know, creepy, scary ones. I can do cartoony, you know, cute stuff as well. Because at the end of the day, you know, there's a range of emotion that I'm feeling. It's not just trying to, you know, scare people or whatnot, or shock people. The reason why I do a lot more monsters is because that's what I'm known for. That's my brand. You know, that's what people, a lot of times that's why people pick up their phone and call me and try to get me on their projects. That's the part that I'm putting forth. But in terms of personal interest, I have a really broad range of subject matter that I'm interested in. Yeah, use mirrors and cameras when you work. That is for when you try to catch symmetry. That is important. Recommend change your career. I would like the same you did, but I don't know how to start. Thanks for reading. Okay, Daniel was asking, how do I recommend to change career? It's hard for me to say that unless I'm your personal coach. I don't know your life story. I don't know your skill set. You know, I can't really give you any recommendation. I would say just try to go for it. not cold turkey like I did. I did something that was, looking back, it was extremely risky. But in retrospect, I also had all the tools that I would need to survive, because I had been a independent artist, independent business person for many years, so I knew how to survive. So, I guess, if you want to make a change, I would say just start. You have to find your way. It's almost like you're going on a hike, right? You just have to know what rough direction. You just start walking, and you try to find your path in a way. Obviously, it's not as simple as that, but in a way, it is similar, because you cannot clearly anticipate every single twist and turn that you might come across. Oh, Vincent says in life, know who's my favorite Shiflett Brothers. Man, that's a tough one. You're asking me that question here? Putting me on the spot, why don't you? Well, we all know that Jared's the standing clerk, right? And Brendan is the brain behind the whole operation, right? That hasn't been changed, right, guys? Since we last worked together, when I was their webmaster, at least at the time, Jared was still the sending clerk. Maybe now he's promoted to the senior sending clerk. Brendan, according to Brendan has always been the brain. So, well, in all seriousness, I love them both. They're both tremendous artists. They both have a big heart. Just the very fact that they've started this forum and kept it going all these years, and still, keeping this open and free for everyone. In all seriousness, it is a tremendous service that they're doing for the community. Who else is doing this? Everyone else is, and besides, clay sculpting, it is really not as popular as before. It's a dying art form. But when I teach my classes, probably more than 90% of my students are digital artists. I always tell them, I'm not here to try to convert you to become a traditional sculptor, but there is a tremendous amount of knowledge and skills here that you can take with you and transport it into your digital application. So in that sense, I still see a lot of value in traditional sculpting, and the very fact that Jared and Brandon, they are keeping this thing going, and advocating for traditional hands-on art is very admirable. So I love you guys for that. All right. Do you get tired of ego in your business? Kurt asked me that. Yes and no. Okay, yes as in, I guess I should answer the no part, because I sort of expected that, because that's just human nature. Doesn't matter which business we get into, there's always giant egos everywhere. The point when they stop having any holds over me or any power over me is when I stop caring, because it doesn't matter which field we go into, whether it's art, whether it's finance or anything. That's just part of human nature. When with power comes ego. People will in higher places, powerful positions will always have that. So, but I guess the trick is really how much value, how much power should I allow them to have? What kind of hold should I allow them to place on me? If I don't really, if they have no influence over me, then I'm just there to do a job. And if they take my advice, take my input, great. If not, it doesn't change things one bit. I still I'm still trying to pursue. I'm still continuing my pursuit to become a better artist. And when I'm becoming a better artist and I make that known to people, I'll get more opportunities. You know, if I don't have the opportunities, I'll try to make the opportunities myself. Then I'm no longer just standing in that line waiting for someone, you know, to give me something. No, I want to create something myself. So in that sense, you know, sure, I'm tired of that because a lot of times, you know, those people don't know what they're talking about. But hey, life goes on, right? Okay, I'm missing some of the comments here. Yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm using mostly my hands because I don't need any tools at this point, right? If I can finish this, or if I can build this thing up, because okay, the audience, you guys are looking at a computer screen or looking at your phone, so you don't get to see the details. And I'm not showing you any details because there's nothing to see yet. So what I'm really doing is I'm just building heavy shadows, right? I am creating I'm applying the really broad brush stroke to create the silhouette of the character. But because I've set up my camera in a way that I'm looking at the camera this way, and I'm trying to sculpt toward the camera, so the amount of shadows that I'm showing you is also different. So all those are going into consideration. It's not just about the details. The details, okay. Here's my opinion on details. It is important when you have the close-ups, right? When you're trying to show that level, but do not just do not plant yourself in front of the camera just waiting for that to happen. You still want to see the whole thing, because when that's not strong enough, any kind of is not going to save your work, okay? It's like a movie, right? You have to have a strong story. You have to have a good script before you just have that one memorable scene. If that's all you have, then the whole thing will kind of defeats its purpose. You're trying to make an entire movie around that one scene. That doesn't make sense. I want to make a movie, and then I have really awesome scenes in between. And I have some climax area, and I have some areas that are kind of muted, because I want to present my storytelling in a way that it has its ups and downs, but the overall presentation, is what matters. Okay, Arnold was saying, do I have a complete vision of completed piece? No, I have no idea what I was going to do, because everything can change depending on what it is that I'm feeling. Like right now, you're looking at, this is the front of the creature. If the conversation goes in another direction, maybe I'll end up deciding this is the front of the creature. That's actually the butt. That's possible. we can still make it work. But that's what's interesting about this process. We never know where we're going to end up, because this whole thing is dynamic. Is an ongoing process. Nothing is locked in. This is my pencil drawing. Like sometimes when people draw, they'll say that, you know, I'll let the pencil do the thinking kind of thing. Here, I'm letting the shapes, you know, letting my fingers do the thinking, my mind guiding the way I'm pushing the clay and finding the direction. Hi, Bruno. Okay, Paul just asked me what age did I start sculpting? Probably when I was 5 or 6. Do you sometimes combine okay, Andrew asked me what kind of tips for reference and observation do you take photos? No, Andrew, for animals, what I'll do is I'll study their skeleton first. I'll look at photos of their skeleton, and then I'll look at the muscles, and then I'll watch videos. I have to see how they can move. You know, the way I learn and I study anatomy is really how can they use that system to work. You know, it's like a mechanic try to understand a car. You have to understand how it runs. It's not just, you know, what kind of body that car has. We have to look at the engine. You know, I don't have to study the organs, but in terms of what I do, movement is really important. Understanding movement, understanding body language is important. So I watch videos instead of, you know, looking at photos. Yeah, I mean this Facebook live thing is really interesting. Like there's a lot of one of the things I really enjoy in my teaching or in my classes is the interaction between people, you know, like-minded people. Because a lot of times when I'm working by myself, what happens is, you know, I am just doing stuff. But if I am exchanging ideas with people, then when they ask me questions, really it forces me to think about my process and try to break it down and try to explain it. You know, if I really care about teaching, then I have to break down my process. And in breaking down the process, it actually makes me a better artist. So that's what I really enjoy. But I guess this type of, you know, Facebook Live type of setting, we also have that. But I guess the only thing is that, you know, is text. It's not auditory. It's not audio. So that part I'm still trying to get used to. Okay, any tips on texturing? Texturing, okay, what you need to train yourself to do is really just to pick a pattern and repeat. That's the simplest way of describing texturing, because, you know, if I can just sculpt the wrinkles on my hand, at a distance, I don't see the wrinkles. I see the muscle formation, right? I see my tendons popping out, I see my veins popping out. Then if I move close, you have to be able to capture that first and foremost. So forget about texturing at this point. And then when you come closer and closer, if you have the major form in place, then you can carve in the wrinkles. And really, if you can draw those, then you can sculpt those. If your textures are not looking right, a lot of times it's really the primary forms, the major structures that aren't being properly portrayed. Then you find yourself constantly going back and forth, trying to correct it, that it doesn't look real. Texturing, you know, I believe there should be a ton of YouTube videos, is really like a recipe. You know, someone can just give it to you once and you'll be able to do it, because you just have to, well, I'm not trying to trivialize the craftsmanship going into that, but obviously you have to have a lot of patience of, you know, repeatedly going at it and try to make it work. But depending on what kind of material you're using, you know, you can you know, for oil-based clay or polymer clay, you can look into texture pads, you know, made out of silicone that you can press onto your sculpture to make those impressions, if that's what you're into. And you know, if anything, I would encourage you guys just try experimenting with a pencil, you know, because this will make it less intimidating. If you can draw wrinkles on paper, you should be able to draw them on your sculpture, but really you're pressing into it, right? Try this. If you can take the fear out of the process, you'll be much more daring. Okay, when you're daring to try, you'll be able to get some really interesting results. Can I recommend any books on anatomy? No, because I don't have any. Well, I do have maybe 2 of them, but I haven't used them in a long time. Anatomy, I would just say Google. You know, Google will give you anything and everything you need. If the way you're approaching anatomy is wrong, you never get the right results. Doesn't matter how many books or how many books you own or how many classes you go to. This is not, you know, this is not a critique on any of you out there. What I am observing rather has really been the prevailing way of teaching and sharing anatomical knowledge. In my opinion, it shouldn't be something that takes years to master. Okay, if you're on the right track, you should be able to master it in a matter of months. Simple as that. You know, like if you look at my anatomical interpretation, they're incorrect. There are many holes in here. Like the proportions were off, but you know, if I'm on the right track in terms of energy and emotion, okay, and balance and weight distribution, then I can just take my time and correct each and every muscle group. Then I'll have a much more meaningful way of attacking that question or that problem, right? If you have to have a really strong foundation to make anything else worthwhile, right? I mean, if my character is standing like a really boring, like, you know, like is not doing anything. Once again, you know, all the muscles being properly sculpted is just not interesting. You know, like a corpse is nowhere as interesting as a real person, right? A corpse has all the muscles, all the muscles are there, anatomically correct, but it's not moving, it's not doing anything. It doesn't make any emotional connection with the audience. I mean, I'm not, you know, speaking in absolute terms. Some people will still find the study of muscles interesting, but I always say you have to couple your anatomical research and study with the quest for the understanding of movement and mobility. And that part is absolutely missing in most of the prevailing way of anatomy studies. All right, now I'm gonna use some tools. You know, seems like some of you guys are very much interested in that. What I have here is just a ballpoint tool. Is just a handle with a metal ball at the end. This is, use this to push clay around and alter the shapes. A lot of times with polymer clay, this type of tool is very useful because polymer clay or something like Super Sculpey is something that is suitable. It's very much a pushing medium. You push the clay around to form the shape. And with oil-based clay or with water-based clay, you also have this type of rake. What it is just a handle. This particular one is just a metal handle with a saw blade, bent like this and insert it into the handle. We can use this to carve. So that is the other method that's applicable and available to sculpting. So you carve the surface and try to clean up the forms. My favorite tools. Here, these are my favorite tools. And other than that, when these become inadequate, I try to use my hands as much as possible. So I want to really focus on the major forms. That may sound like a joke, but really, if you just focus your hands, because obviously the amount of stuff you can do with your hands are limited, right? But the challenge in that is you're gonna have you're forcing yourself to create some effective larger shapes and forms. Okay, if you look at someone like Mike Mignola's work of Hellboy, his work is fantastic. I mean, but he's using some very simple shapes, but they're so effective in terms of placement and presentation. He's a lot of times his work is he's using a lot of shadows and things that are kind of hidden. It's actually what you don't see is helping to make you see what he wants you to see, right? So when I'm using just my hands, I'm trying to create some major shapes, right? I don't have the ability to create high fidelity presentation or detailed information. But what I'm forced to do is focus on the large shapes and major forms, right? Focus on that, create the heavy shadows, get those to work. And then once again, you come closer, everything else will become relevant. So with tools, since you guys are asking about that, so I have, these are pretty much all my tools that I use. Okay, I have the stylus where I can push clay around to make holes. I have a whole bunch of different sizes, okay, that I can use. And then I have the rake of different sizes. It's a metal rake. There's some teeth around the edges, and this is pretty much just a jeweler's saw blade, okay? And you can bend into a round shape and insert it into a handle. You can make this yourself if you want. And then I have a spatula. This is a dentist tool. You can just use this to push things around, also create shapes of different sizes, also depending on the sculpture, the size of the sculpture. And I have also a bunch of guitar string loop tools, okay? These are all made out of guitar strings, so these, I made these myself. You can just get a packet of electric guitar strings. They're different sizes. You can bend the loop into different sizes that you want, and you can carve into your sculpture. If you're using oil-based clay or water-based clay, if you're using Sculpey, a lot of times you won't be able to carve. So you don't want to make your loop tools too tiny. With Sculpey, what you end up doing is that you use the side of your loop tool. You're kind of gliding over the sculpture. It's almost like you're drawing on top of it. So there are different types of material with different types of tools. Okay, Jose was asking, how do you get pieces of clay to stick to your sculpture, for instance, on the horns? Things like that, you just need to ask yourself, basically you're asking, how do I not let them fall off, right? If it's tiny, I'll just do this. If I'm adding a horn, for example, I'm just sticking into it. Right, so there's a horn. But it's like, okay, what if it falls off? Well, first you have to have the ability to just stick it on at will and do whatever you want. And if I want to reinforce it, I'll just cut a piece of wire and just stick it into it. Then there it is, right? Because, if I am just doing this thing for concept, for design, I can do whatever I want. Even if I want to turn this into a production piece, I'll be making a mold. Then at that point, those questions will be you'll have a completely different set of questions. There is a difference between doing something as a product versus doing something as a piece of art. Okay, those are two different topics, and the discussion. You don't want to mix all your discussions into one bag, all right? If I'm doing this thing as a product piece for a client, then maybe I will, insert a piece of wire into this and then, or make a mold and make a casting out of that. It'll be a piece of resin at the end of this process, right? And that thing will be much more permanent. This, I should be able to go as free as possible, right? Okay, Joey was asking about my time sculpting with Nirasawa and Mr. Takeya. It was, it was obviously, I've loved those guys who worked forever since, back in the 90s. They're both great masters. It was, it was a more of an exchange of ideas. It's almost like, I have a tendency of just arranging a lot of some art jams with other artists where I try to see if I can vibrate on their frequency or vice versa. It's almost like you're a dancer, you want to find a partner, or you're a tennis player, you want to find someone to play with, or you're a musician, you want someone that could jam along with what you're playing. It's the same thing with all these different interactions I've had with different artists, because in the process, the energy is different, the feeling is different. At the end of that, I feel like I come out touched, or a different person almost, not life-changing, but those type of experiences is what I'm after. It's not about we've created this fantastic art piece. A lot of times at the end it's almost like nothing was created, but you actually created a lot. I don't know if that makes sense. It's almost like see how sometimes you see those kung fu movies, you have two people standing there, they're not really fighting, but at the end they really fought. It's almost like that. It's almost like there's an exchange of ideas, there's an exchange of emotion and energy just by vibrating on the same wavelength almost. So sometimes even working with illustrators, with 2D artists, I get the same impact. I'm working in clay, someone else is holding a pencil, piece of paper, but if our conversation and our work and the way that I'm pushing the clay, the way that they're applying their pencil or brush, or on the same rhythm, right? You kind of get a very, very different experience out of that. It's no longer just about let's try to polish this. No, it's a very much a emotional connection at that point. So I can get that from working with other sculptors or other illustrators, or even digital artists, or even someone who does calligraphy, because the emotional connection is there, and that's going to get me into a different place emotionally. That's going to affect my lines, that's going to affect my pressure that I'm applying to the piece, and that's going to change my composition. Do I have a favorite sculpture I created? No, not really, because I really treat my work as an emotional outlet. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, like a musician, if that person's playing the guitar or writing a piece of music, if they have a sense, they want to say something in terms of, their thought, their or their emotion, or channel their emotions. You just pick up an instrument and you play. This one particular piece of music at this particular moment tells one story. Tomorrow, maybe I'll end up telling something else. So it's not really, so in that sense, I'm not really particularly proud of one particular piece, but it's really a continued process of just, channeling my feelings and channeling my thoughts. Then they all serve their purpose, kind of thing. Oh, thanks, Russ. Yes. Do you feel all the time you spend sculpting as a hobby help you grow as an artist you are now? Do things or anything when you become a pro? Okay. Everything's. I mean, looking back, everything served a purpose. Like, because I mean, if things worked out, right? For example, in any particular area of your life, anything that's worked out, looking back is like, you can only connect those dots in retrospect. Like I took this one summer class of calligraphy when I was a little kid in China, learning to paint bamboo leaves, and that one move, using the brush, years and years later, decades later, when I'm sculpting, that's actually becoming one of my signature moves, just by bending my wrist. I never anticipated that, right? What I'm saying, well, I guess what I'm saying is, if things aren't working right now, you just have to keep finding creative ways of, continue to make progress. Because only when you do that, you can rise above your current bottleneck or challenge or whatever, and then come out stronger and better. But like, I started my professional career when at the age of 38, right? To a lot of people, that might be a little too late. And part of me was thinking, man, I wasted a lot of time. But then again, I thought, not really, because I've also accumulated a lot of my experience to build up my analytical skills, to build up my business skills, to build up also the frustration, by holding on to a mediocre or really unsatisfactory job for so long, because you need to have that frustration, you need that resistance in life in order, for us to really push ourselves, to get stronger and to get better and go to a different place, if you will. So everything served the purpose, the good ones and the bad ones. In retrospect, all of them were useful. How many hours I sculpt per day? Probably maybe I would say 4 to 5. to my clients, it's all the time. But honestly, just actual sculpting, you know, or exploring ideas, I try to keep it within the office hour limit. Because when I'm home, there are other stuff that I need to take care of. Obviously, you know, I'm a dad. I have my son. I want to, you know, I do my job as a parent, and you know, I have my family life to take care of. You know, and have to do marketing, business planning, all those kind of things. So sculpting wise, I would say probably 5 to 6. But you know, if it's a really rush project, I'll spend more time. But my job is mainly coming up with ideas and design. So to that end, I very much enjoy the time that I'm able to put in. Plus, you can't really stay creative for long periods of time, right? You know, I'm not trying to perfect one sculpture. I'm trying to come up with ideas or design 5, 6 different sculptures. Then, you know, the inspiration or the idea or the amount of energy, creative energy I can have is, you know, sometimes you cannot just plant yourself there for too long. Yeah, there's always hope. There's always hope, because I mean, there's this. I mean, when you look at it, really, you're not getting any younger, right? And whatever age you're at, you know, you're the wisest you've ever been. Because you know you're never going to be younger than you are today, right? Tomorrow you're one day older, right? So, you know, you should have the wisdom to make the right choice to the best of your abilities, right? But if you wait any longer, then you're only going to get older. And it doesn't matter what kind of religious belief you may have, you only get to live this lifetime once, right? If you the fact that you ended up here is because you're into art, you know, might as well just make something out of it, right? If you think that you're good enough, if you think you've worked hard enough, maybe you do deserve a place, you know, in the art world, and you do deserve the attention that you've worked so hard for. So when you think like that, it's like a lot of times is not just about the art, it's about the individual. You have to work on your mentality. You have to improve your mental state so you can keep pushing and be more daring, you know, become that little kid and go crazy with it and see what happens. Because, hey, what do you have to lose, right? Scott was asking, can I describe my feeling, emotion upon finishing a project? Is there any sense of sadness or completion being finished? Or I don't really get the sense of sadness because there's always more. You know, I have no shortage of ideas. I have no shortage of inspiration. Like just by having a virtual conversation with you guys right here, I can get a ton of ideas, ton of inspiration. Because if I'm really just, again, you know, if I am really a musician, I should be able to just pick up that instrument, just play whatever comes to my mind, right? And share that emotion, you know, in an effective way with my audience. As a sculptor, that's what I'm doing as well. I'm not, you know, I'm not just trying to show you this one part. I'm showing you this one thing. I mean, this is really just a part of, it's not much to see here still, but it's a conversation that I am having, with my fellow artists. And this is the result of that conversation. This right here is our connection for this one moment, right? And tomorrow I'll have another connection with something else, with someone else, maybe with my client, maybe with, with another script. And that's okay, because it is an ongoing process. So I'm not really tied down to anything, but there's a whole lot more to look forward to in a way. Yeah, I think one of the things, do I refuse work? Absolutely. Not when I first started. When they offered me Pacific Rim, I think I pretended that to contemplate the offer for maybe about a minute. But nowadays, not anymore. I mean, I don't just accept any project that that they throw my way, because I do have a lot more bargaining power now. I've worked really hard at it, so I can create my own opportunity in a way. So if the project doesn't look appealing enough, I'll turn it down, because there's always something else that I can jump onto. Yeah, the psychological part is really important, I think, because obviously we can all have a discussion about the tools, the clay, the technical side of things, but at the end of the day, we're still just humans, right? We all have our bills to pay. We all have our difficult clients to deal with, or the lack of work to figure out. And that is a different topic. That is the psychological side, or the mental side of being an independent artist, or just being an artist in general. You have to have that discussion separate from the art itself. And when you break those things apart, you don't mix everything into one bag, right? When you're not getting a response or a call back from a client, maybe it's not because of your art. Maybe it's because of the marketing approach, right? Maybe it is because of your art, but you have to be able to put things into proper perspective and framework in order to just get a much more meaningful result. And again, I've worked with so many different artists, and that's actually one of the common themes. That sometimes, as a teacher, I find myself to be almost like a therapist in a way to my students. And we're not talking, high school students or teen or even younger school children. We're talking about working adult professional artists that has been working for many years or even decades in the field, and I still see them going through the same struggles as everyone else. And in the process of communicating with them, I get to see myself. I get to use them as a mirror and reflect onto myself and think about my own future, think about my own method, and in the process, I'll try to break it down, try to help them, giving them suggestions. And there's a constant going back and forth between the mental states and the technical side of doing art. Okay, Mark was asking do I find film producers try to tell me what to do, or they let me run wild independently? No, they always try to tell you what to do, because it is because they're the ones signing the paycheck, and you always want to remember that. Okay, just because I'm a professional, just because I'm an artist, does not mean that I get to do whatever I want on a project. I get to do whatever I want when I'm in here, when I'm in my world. That's why my world is sacred. That's why I want to create my own base, so I can do whatever I want. I can have that sense of enjoyment. But when I'm working for someone, I am no different than this, which is just a tool, right? And my job is just to provide whatever service that my client wanted me to. It is their money. Doesn't mean it's going to be the right call in my mind in terms of creative decision, but remember, you're hired to do a job. And when you think like that, a lot of times I find it to be rather calming, in my mind. Like I don't really, I don't really care what kind of a critique I might be getting, from someone who's simply not an artist, right? I don't really care if my designs were rejected. I'll try to do the best that I can, and I'll try to convince them to the best of my abilities, but I also know when to pull back, because this is for them, right? When I'm doing stuff for myself, I'll do it in a different way, because they're looking at it from the money perspective. They have to concern about money. I'm looking at it from an artistic angle. So those are two different subject matters. So it is as expected. You're gonna get notes and critique from producers and directors, and from studio executives, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just there to do a job. Do you have to grow thick skin to be a mainstream artist? Okay. Yes and no. You have to first define what is a mainstream artist. Think about that term, mainstream artist. What is that? Part of that is also thick skin, right? If you're thick skin, as in you have to place the right values on the right things. Okay, if you're placing value on everything, then it becomes very personal, right? If I'm just trying to sell you this tool and you say no, and I feel offended, because how can you say no? Because I just offer you this tool. Then that's going to be very difficult on me, and it's unnecessary, because I'm just trying to sell you this tool. If you don't like this tool, fine. What about this one, right? So you have to be able to distinguish yourself, like thick skin, but in what terms, right? If you say thick skin as in, I don't really care about the critique from irrelevant individuals. I don't really pick a fight with anyone and everyone. Then I do have a thick skin. But you want to pick the one that's worth your while, right? Again, do not mix everything into one bag. I mean, that is the quickest way to get discouraged, and the easiest way to get depressed and feel defeated all the time. Well, Jordan was asking me, how do I come up with my current price point? I keep raising my prices. I keep raising my prices until the point where they stop buying. Then I know, okay, that is the line we do not cross. Other than that, I'm okay. So you start with something that you think is right, because at the end of the day, there's really no defining rules on pricing, right? If something is priced to sell, then you have to price it at a certain level that more people can afford. But if you're trying to price your piece for what it's worth, then very quickly you can price everyone out of your range, because just the amount of time that you're putting in, the amount of effort that you put into making that piece can really make that piece expensive. So you really need to ask yourself, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get this thing to move quickly, or to get into more people's hands? Or are you trying to sell one piece only to one person? What is it that you're trying to do? So, so that is why, this type of conversation helps. Like, a lot of times I'll be having conversations like this, with my students, with my artist friends, because we're trying to peel off the layers and get to the essence of the answers. It's not just, again, there's not like one solution for all. Like, what is the best clay to use? What are you doing it for? What is the best tool that I should have? How much do you know about your material, right? So you have to have those type of, you have to be very inquisitive in terms of trying to peel off the layers and trying to find the answers. Yeah, hey Jen, happy anniversary. Do I? Okay, Scott was asking what artist has and does inspire me the most. I don't know how to answer that question. Like, I don't quite understand what exactly you mean by that. Like what other people have inspired me the most? Not really. It's really, I try to get my ideas from different sources. If I try to be a better artist, I'll look at, first I'll look at what it is that I'm trying to express, and then I look at how other people are expressing their ways, but in different art forms. So I'm not looking at sculptors per se. I'm actually looking at, I'm looking at athletes. I'm looking at people, like a dancers or a boxer or a fighter or a musician, so on and so forth, because it's all human. They're all human art forms. We're all trying to express what we have. But if I'm so comfortable with what I do, then I can really wield this thing any way I want and try to channel it, more effectively. Then I look at how other people are expressing their feelings, or expressing they're telling their stories. Then I'll try to do that. Like if I look at watch a movie, look at a script, if they're the pacing is good, then I'll try to utilize that and try to, get that to my side. How am I distributing the visual components on my art piece? Is a bunch of clay, but there are pauses, there are negative space in between, right? Why am I using that? It's almost like the punctuations I'm using in writings. I'm pausing the delivery of visual information. Where am I putting the details? Am I putting details all over, or do I want to put details or the heavy concentration of visual focus right here? For example, right? I have to be able to guide the audience, like even the way that the things are flowing, right? From your perspective, the wingtip, they're going like this, and the tentacles is curling back. I want to bring your focus back onto this ball right here. What's here? I don't know. We're gonna find out. But just the way that the visual weight is being distributed, they're circling back onto this, and this is going back to that very early question that someone asked me about composition. How do you do composition? This is one of those things. It's not a intellectual or intellectual decision. It's a feeling. Like I felt the rhythm going this way. I know this is where I would stop. And this is where I need to pull back. I want to focus the visual weights here. Then the next emphasis, maybe the next round of broadcast, I would do all the details I want on this head. Maybe I'll do 20 versions of this head if I have to, just to make this story pop, right? If I'm making a movie, I'm not gonna put special effects all over the entire film. I have limited budget, I have limited time available, I have limited resources. So I am going to focus my firepower on selected areas. Visually, it's the same thing. So when people ask me, like if you ask me just a very blanket question, how do I do one particular thing? Those questions are actually very easy to answer, but you really have to ask yourself, what are you doing it for, and where are you doing it to? If your answer is, it's going to be all over the place, then it's almost like a big budget, visual VFX movie that has nonstop action from beginning to end, but there's no climax, there's no pause, there's no nothing. You feel like it's like, it's still enjoyable as a popcorn movie, but it's not going to be as memorable. The memory is not going to linger. All right, hold on a second, you guys. I need to get some backup power for my phone because the battery is running out. All right, sorry about that. I guess we're almost out of time. But let me look at some of the questions. I do not have any upcoming projects with Guillermo del Toro at this point, but he's always working on newer things. I am always on the lookout and working on different projects. By the way, here's a shameless plug. Godzilla, King of Monsters will be coming out on May 31st in the United States. And I did have the opportunity to work with the director on it, and I was one of the designers responsible for King Ghidorah. So, and when the movie comes out, I'll be able to show you guys a lot of pictures, concept sculpts that I did of King Ghidorah. It was a really awesome project to be part of, and I was very, very proud of the design work that I've contributed to the process. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, man. I mean, Jared, you can let's just tell people the former webmaster that we let go for the Shiflett Brothers Forum designed Ghidorah. All right, guys. I guess I should probably start to wrap this up, but obviously I haven't done a whole lot on the sculpture. There's just a bunch of lines, but I guess if I were to cast this in bronze and put it on a marble base, it could be worth something. But for the time being, this is really just a very much a generic composition of a somewhat Cthulhuan creature riding another monster. So there's another plug for the Monster Rider Challenge that the Shiflett Brothers is doing. I encourage all of you guys to consider participating and contribute to the forum. Once again, really want to thank Jared and Brandon for inviting me to be alongside this, so many different big names and enormous talents on doing this type of live broadcast. Very humbled and honored to be part of this, and hopefully I'll get to do this again sometimes. And I am sorry that I didn't get to answer a lot of your questions, but I will look back on the forum, and whatever question that I can spot, I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. Okay, and as my schedule allows. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you all very much. Have a good day and good night wherever you are, and hopefully we'll get to do this again sometimes. All right, bye guys. Okay, now I just have to figure out how to stop this.